For billions of years, a silent white sentinel has governed the rhythms of our world. But in a single, silent heartbeat, the familiar craters and gray plains simply vanish. In its place, a gargantuan shadow begins to blot out the stars. This is Titan, the crown jewel of Saturn's moons, now claiming our sky as its own. Larger than the planet Mercury, this behemoth brings more than just a new view. Its surface is a frozen laboratory of hydrocarbons and icy secrets. Beneath the orange shroud, temperatures plunge to a lethal -180 degrees Celsius. On Earth, the first thing you would notice is the transformation of the night. The silver moonlight we know is replaced by a heavy golden-orange twilight. Titan appears 1.5 times larger than our old moon in the sky. Its thick nitrogen atmosphere stretches 600 kilometers into the void. This makes the moon look like a giant, fuzzy orb rather than a solid rock. At first, the change seems merely aesthetic and strangely beautiful. But the physics of this new world are about to deliver a brutal reality check. Titan is 80% more massive than our original moon. This extra mass translates into a significantly stronger gravitational pull on our oceans. High tides would no longer be a gentle rise, but a catastrophic surge. Every coastal city on the planet would face devastating flooding twice a day. Low tides would recede so far that entire harbors would be left as dry mudflats. Beachfront property would become a memory as the coastlines are violently reshaped. While Earth suffers, Titan itself would undergo a radical transformation. Moving from the cold outskirts of Saturn to our orbit increases the solar energy it receives. The thick atmosphere would act like a greenhouse, trapping this new heat. The legendary methane lakes on its surface would begin to boil and evaporate. As the methane vanishes into the atmosphere, the icy crust would start to soften. This process would eventually reveal the massive liquid water ocean hidden below. For a brief window, Titan might become the most habitable moon in the system. Scientists would flock to its surface to search for signs of alien life. However, this golden age of exploration would be short-lived. Titan's gravity is too weak to hold onto its thickening atmosphere against the solar wind. Over millions of years, the hazy orb would slowly dry out and bleed into the void. It would eventually become as lifeless and barren as the moon we replaced. But the tidal destruction on Earth would have already changed human history forever. We are beginning to realize that our moon is more than just a light in the sky. It is the anchor that keeps our world stable and our cities dry. Yet, Titan was only the first candidate in this cosmic experiment. Far larger and more terrifying shadows are waiting for their turn. As Titan's orange glow begins to flicker, a new light emerges from the dark. The tides are about to get even higher, and the nights are about to get much brighter. Something gargantuan is approaching, and it has a magnetic field of its own. The hazy orange glow of Titan begins to fade into a cold, clinical silver light as a new celestial body enters Earth's orbit. This is Ganymede, the largest moon in the entire solar system, and it is truly gargantuan in scale. Even bigger than the planet Mercury, this moon brings with it a physical presence that Earth has never had to contend with. As it settles into its new home, the first thing you would notice is the sheer, overwhelming brightness of the night sky. Unlike our old moon's dull gray rock, Ganymede is covered in a thick, reflective crust of water ice. This icy surface reflects far more sunlight than the lunar regolith, turning our nights into a perpetual, blinding twilight. For astronomers, this would be a total catastrophe, as the brilliant glare would wash out the stars and distant galaxies. But the brightness is only the surface of the problem, as Ganymede is twice as massive as our original moon. That massive weight translates into a gravitational pull that would immediately begin to wreak havoc on Earth's oceans. Worldwide megatides would erupt, with walls of water surging hundreds of feet high toward every coastline. Coastal cities like Miami, Mumbai, and Sydney would find themselves underwater twice every single day. The erosion would be so violent that entire land masses would begin to crumble into the sea within weeks. It isn't just the water that moves. Ganymede's gravity is so strong it would actually pull on the Earth's solid crust. This tidal heating of the Earth's interior would trigger massive, simultaneous earthquakes along every major fault line. Dormant volcanoes across the globe would suddenly roar back to life, fueled by the internal friction caused by the moon's tug. Yet, amidst this global destruction, a strange phenomenon would occur as Ganymede brought its own magnetic field to the party. Brilliant auroras would dance across the sky, not just at the poles, but visible from almost anywhere on Earth. Ironically, Ganymede's massive presence would act as a stabilizer for Earth's axial tilt over the long term. This could potentially prevent future ice ages, creating a permanent, steady climate for the survivors of the initial floods. But while Earth is changing, Ganymede itself would undergo a radical transformation as it leaves the cold shadow of Jupiter. Exposed to the much stronger sunlight in Earth's orbit, the moon's ancient ice would finally begin to melt. Vast, 100-kilometer deep saltwater oceans that were once trapped beneath a frozen crust would start to push toward the surface. In time, the moon could become a watery paradise, a new world for humanity to explore just a short rocket trip away. Imagine vacationing on a moon with its own auroras and deep, mysterious seas while looking up at the blue marble of Earth. However, the geological stability of this new arrangement is fragile at best. As the ice on Ganymede turns to vapor, it would create a temporary atmosphere, changing its mass and its orbit. The constant gravitational tug-of-war between the two bodies would keep the Earth's core in a state of molten agitation. We would be living on a planet that is literally being squeezed and pulled apart every 12 hours. And while we adjust to this bright, shaky new world, the next moon is already waiting to take its turn. If you thought Ganymede was intense, wait until you see the moon that is actually on fire. The sky begins to shift from the icy silver of Ganymede to a toxic, sulfurous yellow. This new arrival is Io, and it is the most volcanically active place in our solar system. It doesn't just have mountains, it has volcanoes that blast lava hundreds of kilometers into the vacuum of space. As Io approaches, the gravitational stress on Earth is about to change from a steady pull to a chaotic vibration. The very air starts to smell of sulfur as the new moon's volcanic outgassing begins to touch our atmosphere. The massive tides of Ganymede are subsiding, but they are being replaced by something much more unpredictable. We are trading a world of ice and floods for a world of fire and brimstone. But there's a secret about Io that no one expected once it reaches its final position. The volcanic activity that defines this moon is tied to the gravity of Jupiter, and Jupiter is now very, very far away. As the first volcanic plume on Io begins to flicker and die out, a terrifying new silence falls over the Earth. As the first volcanic plume on Io begins to flicker and die out, a terrifying new silence falls over the Earth. The sudden cessation of the moon's internal roar sends a psychic chill through the observers watching from below. This transition occurs because Io is no longer trapped in the gravitational vice of Jupiter and its sibling moons. Without that constant tidal kneading, the friction that kept Io's core molten begins to dissipate rapidly. Despite this cooling, the visual spectacle in Earth's sky remains unlike anything humanity has ever witnessed. The moon Io shines 5 times brighter than the old moon, casting sharp, golden shadows across the landscape. Its surface is a mottled mosaic of sulfurous yellows, vivid oranges, and bruised blacks. Through a simple telescope backyard, astronomers can see the remaining lava lakes glowing like embers. Because Io's mass is remarkably similar to our original moon, the tides do not immediately destroy our coasts. There's a slight increase in tidal range, but it feels manageable compared to the Titan disaster. For a few weeks, the world stops to stare at this new vibrant companion in the heavens. But as the internal heat of Io fades, its surface begins to undergo a terrifying transformation. Without the volcanic outgassing, the thin atmosphere of Io begins to freeze and fall to the ground. The vibrant oranges start to mute into a dull, dusty gray-yellow as the moon enters a dormant state. Scientists realize that while the volcanoes have stopped, the sulfur on the surface is not stable. Solar radiation begins to strip away the unreplenished gases, creating a faint, toxic trail behind the moon. On Earth, the golden nights start to feel like a countdown to a permanent freeze. The cessation of Io's activity is a signal that Earth's new celestial arrangement is far from settled. Suddenly, deep within the moon's cooling crust, a series of massive tremors begins to shake the lunar surface. These are not volcanic, but tectonic, as the moon adjusts to Earth's specific gravitational pull. The nights on Earth are now illuminated by a moon that seems to be cracking apart before our eyes. A massive plume of white vapor suddenly erupts from one of the southern fissures. This is not lava, but trapped gases escaping as the crust settles into a permanent lock. The light reflected from these new gas clouds turns the moon into a shimmering, ghostly beacon. But the stability of the Earth-Io pair is short-lived as another celestial body begins to loom large. The next phase of the swap is beginning, and the volcanic hellscape of Io is about to be replaced by something far colder. Humanity watches as the yellow moon is eclipsed by a blindingly white sphere. The contrast between the cooling sulfur pits and the pristine ice of Europa is staggering. Europa is smaller than Io, but its reflective power is nearly unrivaled in the solar system. As Europa takes its place, the tidal forces on Earth begin to shift yet again. The golden twilight of Io fades, replaced by a cold, clinical blue-white glow. The transition isn't just visual. The gravity of Europa begins to pull on Earth's own internal layers. The silence of the dead volcanoes on Io is replaced by the groaning of Earth's tectonic plates. Europa's surface, a chaotic web of lines and ridges, becomes the most studied object in human history. Beneath that ice, a hidden world of water awaits, now only 3 days away from our rockets. Astronomers note that the lack of volcanic heat will eventually lead to the freezing of Europa's own core. We are in a race against time to explore these worlds before they become static monuments in our sky. Every night provides a clear view of the cracks where life might be hiding just beneath the surface. But the orbital mechanics are becoming unstable and Europa is not staying in its assigned path. As the ice moon begins to wobble, a massive dark shadow falls across the Earth, and it's not from the moon. The dark shadow retreating from Earth reveals not a void, but a pale, shimmering jewel of ice. This is Europa, Jupiter's most enigmatic satellite, now hanging where our moon once sat. Its surface is a labyrinth of red-brown cracks and icy ridges that stretch for thousands of miles. By night, the sky transforms into a brilliant, blinding white display of reflected glory. Because Europa is highly reflective, it shines 5 times brighter than our old dusty moon. But beneath this beautiful facade lies a secret that has obsessed scientists for decades. An ocean of salty liquid water over 100 kilometers deep hides under the frozen shell. This vast sea contains more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. With the moon now so close, the grueling 3-year journey to Jupiter is reduced to a mere 3-day hop. Humans could walk on its frozen plains by the end of the decade. Drills would pierce the ice, searching for the first evidence of extraterrestrial life. Every probe lowered into the abyss would be a message sent into the unknown. This would be the start of a golden age of discovery unlike anything in human history. However, Europa's lower mass means our planet's tides would begin to fail. The rhythmic pulse of the oceans that sustained life for eons would become a weak, shallow breath. Coastal ecosystems would wither as the nutrient-rich waters stop circulating. But the biggest threat is not the water below, but the warmth from the sun above. Far from Jupiter's cold reach, the sun's rays begin to punish Europa's ancient ice. Huge plumes of water vapor erupt into space, creating a temporary shimmering atmosphere. The moon is quite literally evaporating before our very eyes. Without Jupiter's massive gravity to squeeze it, the internal heating that kept the ocean liquid stops. Europa is entering a state of profound thermal shock. On Earth, the destabilization begins to affect the planet's very core. The lack of a heavy lunar anchor allows Earth to wobble on its axis like a dying top. Seasons begin to merge, and traditional weather patterns are completely obliterated. While we look for life in Europa's depths, we may be losing the conditions for life on our own world. The ice under the research bases begins to groan and fracture under the new solar heat. Alarms sound as the modular habitats lose their footing on the softening ice. This golden age of science is destined to be tragically short-lived. In a few thousand years, Europa will be nothing more than a dry, rocky husk. We must gather every bit of data before the ocean boils away into the void. Deep within the rising plumes, something metallic catches the light. It isn't a piece of our equipment, nor is it a natural formation. The base sensors pick up a rhythmic vibration coming from the moon's core. It's not geological, it's a signal. Suddenly, a massive crack splits the entire horizon of Europa. Something is waking up inside the moon as it warms. We need to evacuate the surface immediately, but the landing pads are gone. The very sky begins to shift as Europa's orbit starts to wobble violently. As the ground beneath the researchers shatters, another moon appears on the horizon, moving at an impossible speed directly toward us. The sky suddenly fractures as the frozen silhouette of Neptune's largest moon, Triton, tears through the orbital plane. Astronomers across the globe watch in disbelief as the massive ice world moves in a direction opposite to Earth's rotation. This retrograde orbit is a cosmic anomaly that defies the natural flow of our local solar system. The sheer friction of gravitational forces begins to act like a brake on Earth's steady spin. Triton's surface is a mottled landscape of frozen nitrogen and strange, dark streaks. Towering plumes of nitrogen gas erupt from the southern pole, reaching miles into the thin vacuum. The extreme cold of this moon begins to influence the upper reaches of our own atmosphere. As Triton passes overhead, its massive gravity pulls at the Earth's crust with an unfamiliar rhythm. People look up to see a moon that looks like a giant scarred marble rolling backwards across the stars. Because it orbits in reverse, the tidal bulge on Earth is pushed ahead of the moon rather than behind it. This creates a powerful drag that starts to destabilize the very tilt of our planet. Seasonal patterns that have lasted for millennia begin to dissolve in a matter of days. The cryovolcanoes on Triton provide a spectacular, if deadly, light show for those watching from Earth. Nitrogen ice rain begins to fall in the upper atmosphere, creating shimmering alien clouds. Triton is slightly larger than our moon, but its composition makes its gravitational signature far more aggressive. The oceans do not know how to react to a moon moving against the current of the world. Coastal cities experience countertides that surge with unpredictable and destructive force. Beneath the crust, the tectonic plates groan under the strange new stress of the retrograde orbit. For a brief moment, the moon rests at the zenith, its pinkish hue reflecting off the morning dew. But the silence is broken by a low-frequency hum emanating from the sky itself. Triton is slowly spiraling inward, drawn by the very friction its backward orbit creates. As it gets closer, the gravity becomes exponentially more dangerous to Earth's axial tilt. Glaciers in the north begin to melt at a rate never before seen in human history. In the tropics, sudden frosts kill off entire ecosystems in a single night. Scientists launch a desperate mission to probe the surface of this rogue moon. The images sent back show a world of liquid nitrogen lakes and mountains made of water, ice. This beautiful world is a harbinger of Earth's eventual mechanical failure. The length of a day begins to fluctuate, throwing off every biological clock on the planet. Tidal heating starts to warm Earth's interior, causing dormant volcanoes to wake up. Birds lose their way, falling from the sky as their magnetic navigation fails. Triton's presence is a reminder that the universe does not care for our comfort. Earth feels like a small boat being tossed in the wake of a passing ocean liner. Engineers work around the clock to recalibrate global positioning systems. Without a stable tilt, the very concept of north is becoming a moving target. Triton glows with a faint, ghostly luminescence in the deep of the night. Its atmosphere, though thin, creates a trailing tail of ions that Earth sweeps through every day. The stress on the planet's core reaches a breaking point as the tilt shifts by another degree. There is no way to stop the retrograde momentum of a moon this large. The sky begins to turn a bruised purple as the nitrogen from Triton pollutes our upper air. Triton has done its damage, but it is already being pulled away by a new, smaller gravity. Just as the Earth settles into its new crooked tilt, two tiny dark shapes appear, rapidly eclipsing the stars. The massive icy presence of Triton vanishes instantly, replaced by two jagged shards of darkness against the stars. These are the twin terrors of Mars, Phobos, and Deimos, and they bring with them a silence more frightening than any storm. Without a large moon to reflect the sun, the nights on Earth suddenly plunge into an absolute suffocating ink. Our familiar moon was a massive beacon, but Phobos is a mere fraction of its size. From the ground, Phobos looks like a fast-moving, lumpy star racing across the constellations. It crosses the sky in just a few hours, rising in the west and setting in the east, defying the motion of everything else. Below, the oceans have fallen into a deathly, eerie calm as the tidal forces of our old moon evaporate. Because Phobos and Deimos are so small, they possess almost no gravitational pull on our seas. The rhythm of the tides, which has guided life for billions of years, simply stops. But the lack of light and tides is only the beginning of a much more violent transformation. Phobos is orbiting Earth at a distance much closer than our original moon ever dared. It is so close that it feels the drag of the atmosphere, slowing it down with every single pass. This friction is a slow-motion death sentence for the tiny moon. With every orbit, Phobos inches closer to a point of no return called the Roche limit. At this boundary, Earth's gravity will become stronger than the gravity holding Phobos together. We watch from the surface as the moon begins to visibly distort into an oval shape. Suddenly, a massive chunk of rock shears off, trailing behind like a ghostly companion. The structural integrity of the moon fails, and it begins to disintegrate into a million pieces. Within weeks, Earth is no longer a planet with a moon, but a planet with a ring. The ring is beautiful, but it is made of lethal, city-sized asteroids that are falling out of orbit. The first of these fragments strikes the Pacific Ocean with the force of 1,000 nuclear bombs. Shockwaves ripple through the atmosphere, shattering windows on every continent. Deimos, the smaller sibling, watches from a safe distance, a cold and indifferent spectator. Deimos is too small to even be seen as a disk. It is just a star that doesn't twinkle. It offers no warmth, no light, and no guidance for the lost sailors of the New World. On Earth, the survivors look up to see the sky filled with the burning remains of Phobos. Each streak represents a piece of the moon that once circled Mars for eons. The atmosphere begins to heat up as the kinetic energy of the falling moon is converted into thermal radiation. It is as if the heavens themselves have caught fire, raining molten rock onto the forests below. This process is known as orbital decay, and it is a relentless mathematical certainty. We realize now that our original moon was a miracle of orbital stability. Phobos was never meant to be here. It was a captured asteroid that lacked the mass to stay in place. As the final large pieces of Phobos impact the crust, the Earth's rotation begins to wobble violently. The balance of our world is shattered, and the climate begins to swing into chaotic extremes. Only Deimos remains, a tiny, useless pebble in the sky that offers no help to a dying world. But even the rain of fire from Phobos is nothing compared to the cold that is coming next. Far across the solar system, a new candidate is being summoned to take the place of the fallen Martian moons. It is a moon of pure ice and geysers, a brilliant white orb that promises to bring back the light. Enceladus arrives with the grace of a winter queen, trailing a tail of frozen crystals. But as the white light fills the sky, we realize this new moon is far too light to pull the tides back to where they belong. The dark void of the Martian moon's reign suddenly shatters as a new contender drifts into Earth's orbit. Enceladus arrives like a polished pearl of fresh snow spinning around our world. This moon is covered in the freshest ice particles and snow in the entire solar system. Its surface has the highest albedo of any celestial body, acting as a cosmic mirror. To an observer on the ground, the pitch-black nights of the previous moons are finally over. The night sky is now dominated by a brilliant, cool white radiance. Even though it is smaller than our original moon, its reflectivity makes it shine with surprising intensity. The landscape below is washed in a dim but beautiful silver light. High above, we see the tiger stripes, the deep blue fractures at the moon's south pole. Icy geysers erupt from these cracks, spraying water particles into the vacuum. For a moment, Earth seems to have a moon made of pure magic. But as we look closer at the mathematics of this swap, the beauty begins to fade. Enceladus is far too light to hold the command of our tides. The great gravitational engine that moves our oceans is suddenly cut off. Without the moon's mass, the oceanic tides drop to nearly half their original strength. The sun becomes the primary driver of what little tidal force remains. This shift triggers an immediate collapse of delicate coastal ecosystems. Mangroves and salt marshes, which rely on the rhythmic ebb and flow, begin to wither. Global heat regulation, usually moderated by ocean currents, starts to fail. Weather patterns that have been stable for millennia turn chaotic and unpredictable. Meanwhile, Enceladus itself is facing a transformation under the sun's heat. No longer shielded by Saturn's distance, the ice begins to sublimate directly into gas. A temporary, thin atmosphere forms around the moon as the ice melts. Scientists realize that the subsurface ocean may soon be exposed to the sky. If life exists in those dark depths, it might finally see the light of a star. But this ocean is doomed to dissipate into the vacuum of space without the moon's gravity to hold it. Back on Earth, the loss of a strong lunar anchor causes our axis to wobble. Within centuries, the North Pole could find itself pointing toward the equator. The climate uncertainty makes agriculture nearly impossible for the survivors. We have gained a beautiful shining jewel, but lost the rhythm of life itself. Enceladus continues its slow evaporation, shrinking in the sky each decade. The brilliant white snow is eventually replaced by a dull, rocky core. The lack of tidal friction means the moon won't be geologically active for long. Earth is left with a small, cold remnant that provides neither light nor stability. It is a reminder that in the cosmos, beauty does not always equal utility. We realize now that the search for a perfect moon is more complex than just finding a pretty one. The physical properties of our original moon are beginning to look like a miraculous coincidence. Every experiment has brought us closer to catastrophe, yet the mystery persists. But as we prepare to look back at our own moon, a final revelation begins to dawn on the horizon. The delicate balance of our world is fraying, and we must ask, was the original moon ever really just a rock? We stand on the precipice of a world that has forgotten its rhythm. The silence in the sky is more deafening than the roars of the exotic moons we witnessed. Our journey across the solar system has revealed a terrifying truth about cosmic variety. We have seen how Titan's thick haze would choke our horizons in orange gloom. We felt the ghost of Ganymede's megatides threatening to swallow our coastal civilizations whole. The volcanic fury of Io reminded us that proximity can be a death sentence. Even the serene ice of Europa and Enceladus proved to be masks for planetary instability. The physics of our existence are written in the gravitational dance of a single gray rock. Without the moon's steady hand, Earth's tilt would wobble like a dying top. Seasons would vanish, replaced by chaotic swings from frozen wastes to blistering deserts. We realize now that the moon was never just a passive observer of our history. It was the architect of our tides and the guardian of our climate. Suddenly, a ripple in the fabric of space begins to manifest near the lunar orbit. The exotic invaders are pulled back into the depths of the outer solar system. A familiar silhouette begins to block out the distant stars once more. It is the return of the original anchor, the companion we took for granted. The oceans feel the call and settle into their rhythmic, gentle pulse. The silver light bathes the world, restoring a sense of sanity to the night. Scientists across the globe watch as the gravitational sensors return to baseline. Nature seems to exhale a collective sigh of relief as the stability returns. We have learned that bigger is not always better in the cosmic scale. The moon's lack of an atmosphere is exactly what keeps our skies clear and predictable. Its dead, cratered surface is a shield that has borne the scars meant for us. In the vastness of the universe, such a perfect pairing is a statistical miracle. We look up now, not with boredom, but with a newfound sense of wonder. The nightmare of celestial chaos has faded into a lesson of cosmic gratitude. No titan or giant can replace the quiet dignity of our own satellite. We are tiny beings on a blue dot protected by a gray sentinel. The familiar patterns of the man and the moon seem to smile down upon the restored world. The gravity wells have aligned, and the orbital mechanics are once again in perfect sync. The panic in the streets has turned into a global celebration of the ordinary. We often search the stars for something extraordinary, forgetting we live upon it. This celestial swap was a journey through the what-ifs that defined our what is. Our moon is more than a rock, it is the heartbeat of our planet. It cradles the life that thrives in the shadows it casts. To understand our moon is to understand the fragility of our own existence. The stars may be full of wonders, but they are cold without a home to view them from. The great experiment of the cosmos has concluded with a return to grace. As the sun begins to rise, the moon fades gently, but we know it remains. We are home, we are safe, and we are finally at peace with our celestial neighbor. The journey is over, but the watch continues every single night. Good night, Earth. Good night, Moon.